Well, hey guys, this is the first video in a series of videos where we're going to talk about these things that we call index laws. But the first question I guess we need to answer before we talk about the index laws is what the heck is an index? So you might be familiar with something like this, big 3 with a little 2 at the top. So the big 3 is at the bottom and then it has a smaller number at the top. You've probably seen something like this before. Okay, it means 3 multiplied 2 times. So 3 times 3. And when it's written as 3 times 3, we say it's written in its expanded form. So we've taken it, we've put the time signs in. It's 3 multiplied 2 times. Okay, when it's written like this, we say it's in its index form with a big number at the bottom and a small number at the top. Now you guys, have probably seen that, and you would know that you would just say that as 3 squared. Okay, but another way that we could have said this index was 3 to the power of 2. Okay, 3 on the bottom to the power of the small number at the top, 2. All right, so the thing on the bottom, the big number on the bottom, we refer to as the base. We call that the base number for our index. And the small number at the top, we call the index. So they actually have labels, the base and the index. The plural of index is indices. So if I had more than one, like a bunch of these different sort of indexes, I would say, oh, these are a set of indices. Let's have a look at a few more examples because they're like 3 squared, that's really easy. But there are a few more that maybe get a little bit more complicated because they could look like this. They could have letters or pronumerals in them. So I would say that as x to the power of 4. In its expanded form, because that's written in index form, in its expanded form, it would be x times x times x times x. 4 lots of x multiplied together. What about, and sometimes though, remember in algebra we don't write in the times signs between letters. So you could see that written as x, 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 x. It would mean the same thing, x times x times x times x. Here's one though that has a negative number in the base. Now it's a good habit and usually you'll see them written inside of brackets. Long story, I'm not going to go into it here. Maybe we'll do it in another video, but it can get really confusing if they're not in the brackets. So that means negative 3 in my base means to the power of 3, right? Negative 3, or sometimes we say cubed. If the index is 3, we would say negative 3 cubed, or we could say negative 3 to the power of 3. But all it means is negative 3 multiplied together 3 times. Be careful though, and this is what I mentioned, without the brackets, you actually get something different if you put that in your calculator. Okay, if you try to put those two things in your calculator, you're going to get different answers. So just be careful, the brackets are really important. You might even have fractions involved, and that's okay. This has a base of a half, so this would be said as half to the power of 4, which would just mean a half multiplied 4 times. A couple of others that we're not going to sort of go into until maybe sort of further down the track in the videos, but you can also have fractions in the index. This we would say as 3 to the power of a half. Now I'm not going to write that in its expanded form because it gets a bit weird. We'll look at that in a future video. And finally, you might have negative numbers in the index. Once again, they have some different things going on there, but we would just say that as 6 to the power of negative 7. But for the moment, we're just going to deal with some basic indexes and we'll get into some of the more complicated ones as we go along. So that's what an index is, and then future videos we'll look at some laws on how we use them when we're doing calculations. Good job, well done.